to the first Southern Door Intelligence Squared debate. Today's motion, clean energy can drive our economy's recovery. Devin and Cora will be arguing the affirmative, while their opponent, Katie, will be arguing the negative. I am your moderator, Mr. Hanson. Let's begin.
Can clean energy drive America's economic reform? I say no. We are all well aware of the economic issues within our borders. There are problems that need to be solved, but do not be fooled. Energy is not the answer. To begin with, according to our finite world, energy as a whole accounts for a mere 9% of the economy. That's 9%. That said, even if we completely transform our energy makeup, it will not contribute enough to make a significant change in our economy. Therefore, the simple answer to this question here is no. Clean energy cannot drive America's economic reform. This is not the only reason, however. Clean energy may be good, and it might help in many ways, but it will not drive the economic reform. First of all, almost every single form of clean energy is significantly more expensive than its quote-unquote dirty counterpart. If U.S. citizens pay more for energy, they will have less to spend on other things, thus hindering economic stimulation. Even now, with clean energy being researched for years, the cost is still substantial. Middle America cannot afford to pay for said energy. And even if they did, that money would be taken away from products that they would normally purchase. Additionally, some argue that clean energy research and newly created businesses will create numerous jobs in the United States. However, this is a ridiculous statement for several reasons. A Stanford study concluded that, quote, the advantages of increased jobs due to renewable energy is vastly overstated. Yes, research and innovation create jobs, but they have proven to create jobs overseas, in other countries. An article on ideastations.com shares that, quote, a significant portion of clean energy funding has gone to foreign companies who have had the advantage of having been heavily subsidized by their own governments for a number of years. Thus, our money is going elsewhere to get more innovation. Herein lies the issue. Our funding for clean energy is creating jobs, but not domestic jobs. This all comes back to competition issues revolving around cheap foreign labor. Let me ask you this. How will new jobs in China drive the economic recovery here in the United States? My third point is that clean energy cannot drive the recovery because there is simply not enough of a demand. In the Intelligence Squared debate, it was said that alternatives account for only 5% of all energy we are using now. This 5% is not an increasing number either. More proof of low demand comes by looking at overall energy consumption. The Center for American Progress tells us that U.S. energy consumption is on the biggest decline since the end of World War II. It is evident that Americans are not demanding new sources. This would be like greatly increasing production of a new car that no one is buying. The trusty laws of supply and demand tell us that building new energy now doesn't make any sense. Lastly, as a nation, we seek instant gratification. We continue to search for immediate answers to our economic problems. Energy is not this answer. Even if we invested in clean energy across the board, we will not see any substantial results until several years from now. Americans tend to take the easy way out, perfectly demonstrated by large dependency on coal and oil. Mason Cooley shares, quote, determination, courage, and hard work are all very nice, but not so nice as an oil well in the backyard. It is true that coal and oil are not the best for the environment, but that is not the topic of this discussion. We must remember that the question at hand is regarding whether or not clean energy will drive the economic reform. I agree that clean energy is important, but in no way will it turn our economy around. Something like clean energy can in no way drive our economic problems because it is just simply too small to make such a large impact. Thank you.
In a time of such economic instability and stagnation, people are looking for any means to spark growth. The dedication to finding new and expanding on old types of clean energy can serve many purposes. First of all, avoiding the economic aspect, consider the beneficial things that we are doing for our environment. Many controversial topics, global warming, for example, can be addressed through clean energy. So it's not just about promoting economic growth, it's about building a stronger society entirely. Furthermore, we live in an age where the newest cool thing is being green. But how can we be green without time dedicated to research and innovation? When we dedicate time to research and innovation, we are in fact promoting our economy because someone has to be paid to do said research. When factories and laboratories are put up, we generate hundreds of jobs, not just for the scientists, but also for the people who are employed to maintain these buildings. Lastly, we need to consider clean energy in a global economy sense. As a whole, the U.S. needs to step up its game and become competitive globally. We need to increase our capabilities so we can sell to countries outside the U.S. and hopefully spur economic recovery. Also, if we can lean away from dependence on oil and increase dependence on other fuels within our country, we can save ourselves financially. It's not just an investment in clean energy, it's an investment in economic recovery.
Can clean energy drive our economy in the United States today? I think yes. And with me today, I have a few facts about how clean energy can drive our economy today. As the impact of fossil fuels on our environment becomes more and more evident, renewable energy with its non-polluting qualities and infinite capacity is just what we need to save our fragile planet. It's thanks to the works of engineers and scientists that we are able to harness the renewable energy available to us and make it useful. I have with me today a top 10 need-to-know facts about renewable energy. Number 1, there are 5 main forms of renewable energy: wind, water, biofuel, geothermal, and solar. Number 2, if we could properly be harnessed, enough sunlight falls on the earth in just 1 hour to meet the energy for a whole year. Number 3, the innovator Albert Einstein won the Nobel Prize in physics in 1921 for his groundbreaking experiments with solar power, photovoltaics. Number 4, the geothermal energy from the core of the earth is closer to the surface in some areas than others. Where hot underground steam or water can be tapped and brought to the surface, it can be used to produce electricity. Number 5, a world record was set in 1990 when a solar-powered aircraft flew across the USA in 21 stages with using no fuel at all. Number 6, one wind turbine can produce enough electricity to power up to 300 homes. Number 7, the largest wind turbine in the world is located in Hawaii, stands 20 stories tall, and it has the blades the length of a football field. An average wind speed of just 14 miles per hour is needed to convert wind energy into electricity. So in conclusion, I hope that our country can again aim for the moon and to aid America's economic recovery, and will not have our looming question answered by waiting for light years. Thank you.
Welcome back to Southern Door's debate on can clean energy drive America's economic recovery. Now we're going to have some direct interaction between students, and we are going to start with the issue of oil. Katie, can you please address the issue of what role crude oil and oil prices play in this situation?
Well, at this point, America is definitely still dependent on oil. As I said earlier, only 5% of the energy we're using now is considered clean. So obviously, oil prices would at this point, though, even with the oil prices rising, the amount of people who are using renewable energy isn't increasing. It's just energy as a whole is decreasing. So the amount of energy that we're using now is decreasing. One of the statistics was that we are using the same amount of energy now as we used in 1973. It's just that it's more, today cars are more efficient, so oil is being used in a better manner.
I would argue that if we could find alternative sources, we could stop depending on oil and stop spending the money on oil, especially due to the amount of oil we end up importing. We can completely, if we can find alternative methods, we can remove that spending from the equation.
Well, it's not about finding the resources,
renewable sources. It's the fact of, because they're already found. Like, we already have numerous, like Cora mentioned, numerous ways of renewable resources. It's just that they're not being used, and they're simply, the people, there's not a high enough demand for them that they're getting out there, so they're not.
We will get to demand in a moment, but Cora, could you please address the issue of the price? Oil prices go up and down.
Yes.
Clean energy it's argued that it is too expensive to drive our recovery. How can clean energy drive our economic recovery considering the cost?
Well, see, that's the thing. There's a common misconception that dirty resources cost less, but in fact there was a recent study done in Harvard that reveals the fact that with health and environmental damages taken into account, the cost of dirty coal can triple the cost of the dirty energy, and that would make an additional $345 billion in hidden expenses. So if you take all these into account and you combine it with the original costs, it would make it actually more than what it would cost for like say a wind turbine or like solar panels or something like that.
That is true, and the dependency on oil is becoming an issue. However, it's not going to help our economy to introduce these new renewable sources or clean sources, because by the time that this impact, did it say how long that would take?
No, it did not.
Okay, so like by the time that this impact would take place, it's likely that the renewable sources wouldn't even pay for themselves. But the fact that oil per kilowatt hour is 9 cents versus like wind is 6 cents per kilowatt hour. That's just a kilowatt hour, mind you. But that's a 3-cent difference. But that's not even taking into account the actual windmill. So like you see, the expenses definitely pile up. And yes, the oil prices are increasing, but it's not nearly as close to the prices of the alternatives. And it's not necessarily about the actual prices that we see now, but it's about if we truly want to help the economy, it's going to be about slowly transitioning to these newer methods, not completely new.
I think my partner made a good point, because people don't consider, they think, okay, oil is cheaper, and they don't think about, changing to putting solar panels on the house. They think that's going to be expensive. But think about them. She made a good point in saying, think about the money we end up spending on environmental rehabilitation.
Yeah, this is a very good point, but I have to interrupt you.